Alrighty guys, welcome to your 30-second video, and in this video, as promised, what I'm going to do is show you guys how to code that. I forgot what I actually even named my method. Where the heck is it? Oh, grab HTML info. That's probably pretty important. So what I'm going to be doing is showing you guys how to code this method, and basically what it does is it takes a look at our XHTML, or I guess this is just a basic HTML document, and it grabs the information that we need, which is essentially the titles and the values. So, the last method that we coded basically did the advanced stuff. Now we just need to pretty much populate these two things, the hash map and the array list. So this is pretty much the easy part actually. So private void grab HTML info, doesn't take any parameters. And the very first thing we want to do is we want to make a few variables to store the title, the address, URL, just housekeeping stuff. So string title, because the title of the website is of course a string address, URL, which I don't think I need to explain to you guys what that is, and the int counter. And the reason that we need a counter, let's go ahead and start it as 0, is because you know how I said that I have two websites in here, my main website and my Twitter, and each one pretty much has an ID number. The first one is 0, my Twitter is 1. I could add, my Google Plus, which is 2, YouTube, which is 3, so on and so forth. Since I want this to be compatible no matter how many websites you have, I'm gonna go ahead and make a loop that starts at 0, and it's just gonna loop until the end. So that way, if you have 10 websites, 100, 1,000, this program is gonna work no matter what. So go ahead and start at 0, and that's why I started my ID numbers at 0. Now after the int counter, what you want to do is you want to set the title. You pretty much want to kickstart it off at 0. So title equals get parameter, and the parameter is title plus counter. So pretty much title 0. So what am I doing in this? Well, what this method does right here, get parameter, is it's going to go ahead and return the value where title 0 is. So let's go ahead and look, where is title 0? Right here. So the value of this is thenewboston.org. So in other words, the very first title is equal to thenewboston.org. So again, the reason that I named everything title 0, title 1, title 2 is because every time we want to, get the value, all we need to do is increment this counter through a loop, and it's going to grab different titles. So that's why you need to set up your naming conventions just like I did, with the word title and the value right after it. So now, I keep talking about loops, loops, loops. Let's go ahead and make the loop right now. So while, not white, that's so racist. So while title is not equal to null, because basically, check out what happens. It's going to loop through title 0, then it's going to look through title 1, then it's going to look for title 2, and title 2 doesn't exist, so it's equal to null. So that's what we're pretty much saying. As long as you have, websites, then what do you want to do? Well, what we want to do is, the first thing we want to do is we want to grab the URL. So we pretty much use the same functionality as here, but instead of the title parameter, we're going to use it for the address parameter. So just store this in the variable address, which is what we created up here. So address equals get parameter address plus counter. So the very first time that this loops through, let's see what address 0 is. So since our counter is at 0 on the first loop, it's going to store the value of http thenewboston.org in the variable address. Now remember, right now this is only a string, and we can't have that because, like I said, our hash map only stores URLs. And like I said, Java can't open strings. It can only open URLs. So what we need to do is convert this to a URL object. So in order to do that, go ahead and put a try statement. And actually, I want to just go ahead and catch this right now because I freaking hate catches for some reason. Malformed. I have to make sure I freaking spell this right. URL exception, and I'll just name this, I don't know, URL exception, and might as well handle this. So URL exception, we'll just print stack trace. There we go. So basically, now that we handled, why does this say? Oh, I need to go ahead and write some try code in here. Alright, so now what we want to do, that we took care of the catch, which is pretty much housekeeping stuff, is convert this address, which is a string, to a URL object. Now we already told Java that we're going to make a URL object and store it in the variable URL. So let's go ahead and say URL equals new URL. Now in order to convert a string to our URL object, just go ahead and pass in a string right here. And what this basically does is it runs this class and creates a URL object out of this string address. So basically every time that we loop through right now, it's going to grab the value from this string, or excuse me, the value from this parameter, which is just a string of text called address, and in this line of code it's going to convert that to a URL object. So why are we converting it to a URL object? Well, because our class init, it uses a hash map which has a string, which is the title of the website, associated with the URL object. So now, since that's the case, I think it would be a good idea to actually add this information into the hash map. So remember, our hash map was named website info, and in order to add keys and values, in order to add things into your hash map, you actually need to use the object put. So the first one, as you can see, is the key, and the key here is title, which is the title of the website, and the value is the URL object, which is, of course, if you couldn't guess, URL. So every time this little line of code runs, it's going to add a new item into your hash map, the title and the URL. So our first key value pair in our hash map is thenewboston.org, which is the title, and the URL, which is actually a URL object now. That's much easier for Java. This URL right here. The next object that it's going to add whenever it loops through the next time is Bucky's Twitter, and Bucky's Twitter URL as a URL object. So the last thing that we need to do is we need to add the crap to the titles array list. So remember when we created this titles array list right here? Well, let's go ahead and populate that, and this is actually really easy. Write the name of your array list, which is titles, write add, and then write title right there. So remember, the title is pretty much that first thing we grabbed from that parameter, and we're just adding it to the array list, much like the same way that we added crap to, what was it called, the hash map. So now that our try catch is complete and all the housekeeping stuff is pretty much taken care of, outside your catch, you want to do two more things. The first thing you want to do is increment counter, so plus plus counter. So that way, you're not stuck on 0 the whole time. It goes, title 0, title 1, title 2. That's why we increment that, of course. Probably didn't even explain that. Now we actually need to change title and set this equal to get parameter title plus counter, just like before. So why do we need to do this? Because remember, what our loop is going to do is it's going to keep looping until it finds a title that doesn't exist. So it's going to say, okay, does title 0 exist? Yup, that's Bucky's website. Does title 1 exist? Yup, that's Bucky's Twitter. Does title 2 exist? Well, no, that doesn't exist. So now, if it doesn't exist, title is going to be equal to null. It's going to break out of the loop. That means it's done looping through all the websites. So in the next video, I'm going to show you guys how to add this applet to an actual website and get it running and working. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you then.